So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and get my orange wet, because I'll be using it. So we're going to do warm colors in here. So I want my orange to be wet. Probably get my yellow wet, but I don't know how much we'll actually use that. But just in case, I'm going to get my red wet, and then I'm also going to get the brown wet. The brown's going to be my darkest color on there. And I'm looking at my brown and I see that I have a little spot of blue that landed in there from last time. I don't know if that's going to show up on the camera or not, but there's a little spot of blue. This is nothing to panic about. I'm just going to get it wet, and I'll take a paper towel or a Kleenex, soak it up, and it goes away. So, tragedy averted. Just come back in and get my brown wet now. Okay, I'm going to move this way down so you can see what I'm doing when I get working on this skull. We're going to start with the top part of the skull right here. I'm going to get some orange. It's going to be my medium color. I'm going to mix up a little bit and have some in my upper tray. So over here off to the side, what I'm doing is just getting a little bit of orange right here and mixing it up. Check it on a test paper to make sure it's not too dark or too light. Check this on here. Looks like a good medium. That's what I want. Okay, before I put any paint on my skull here, I'm going to just take a little bit of water and go right along this edge right here, and get a little more water. Right along this edge right here, I'm going to stop at the brow. Just kind of come down this edge. Just blend it right on down into the skull here. I want that a little wet. Don't want it too wet, a little wet. Now I'll come take my orange and I'm going to go right over this edge. Be really careful that I'm keeping a nice sharp edge on the outer part of that skull. Blend this right on down to the side. I'll take just a little bit of water and soften this as it comes down in here. But by putting a little bit of water on there first, it makes a nice blend into the yellow. Just nice, lightly goes right into the yellow. That's what we want. Don't really want to see where the yellow starts and stops and the orange starts and stops. Then while that's still wet, I'm going to come in with some red straight out of my tray. That's a darker color. I'm going to bring that all the way down. Going right along the edge of the eye bone there. Soften that just a little bit so there's not a hard edge. I need to bring it down here. I forgot to bring it down here on the top of the brow here, so I'll do that right now. Going to quickly come in here, get a little bit of orange, come along the top of the brow, and blend that up. Bring it all the way up. And lighten it a little bit. come in with the red right along there too. A little bit of that dark red along this edge here. I need to lift this up slightly so you can see what I'm doing. A little bit of red right along here. I'm going to blend that out slightly. I'm going to take a little bit of brown right along this edge. Come down right along the brow with it. The brown, when I blend it out, will make it just a little more dingy. Not quite as bright red coming off of there. More like a decaying skull. That's what I want, is a little bit of that brown. Not a ton, just enough to take that bright red edge off of there. I'll bring some down this way too. I'm mixing up a little green over here, and I'm going to water it down quite a bit. I don't want it to be very dark. I'll bring a little bit of that green right in here on this edge. And the green, again, is to make this look a little more weathered and a little more old. I want just a little bit of yellow showing right in the center there. But I want to age this just a little bit. I'll bring some down on the brow too, just to age that yellow, knock it back slightly. It needs to be kind of an ugly color. So I'll pause just for a minute, give some of you a little time to catch up, and then we're going to do this eye and the brow above it here in a minute. Does anybody need more time with that upper part? Raise your hand if you do, because I'm going to move on to the eye. All right, don't see any hands, so we're going to move on to the eye. Go ahead and get the center of the eye wet with just some water, not a ton of water, but a little bit. Afraid I got too much, so I'll just take a little off. Come around the outer edge with orange, just like we did before. I want it to bleed towards the middle. That orange, I'm going to just kind of blend it together with the yellow a little bit. Come back and get my red. Go along the top edge for sure. Okay, now before I go along that bottom edge, I'm going to take a little bit of red along the side and the bottom edge. I don't want to go all crazy dark with it like I did the top. I want it to look like it's casting a shadow onto the bottom. So I want that to stay light down there at the bottom. I'm not going to put any more red on that. I'm letting it dry for just a few seconds, and then I'm going to come along that upper edge with the brown to brown it down just a little bit. It's probably about ready. We'll find out here in just a second. If it's not, it'll bleed all over the place. No, it's okay. Take a little bit of water along that bottom edge so it gives it a soft edge to it. Just let that brown kind of bleed right into it. Now it's a good dark shadow, makes it look like it's going back a little bit. Hold that up close. That's what it looks like. From brown to red to yellow. And it's okay if it has a little bit of a harder shadow here because the brow is casting a shadow back into the eye socket. Before I move on and do the brow and the cheekbone and all this down through here, I'm going to go ahead and do the nasal opening on the left side. It's exactly like we've done just previously. Get it just a little wet to the center. Get a little bit of orange, a little bit of red, a little bit of brown before we're done. The only difference here is it's such a tight area, there isn't going to be much yellow showing through. Which is fine because there's not going to be much light showing through in there. bring that up closer. That's what we have, just a little tiny bit of light showing in it. The water's getting kind of dirty, it's starting to look really orange, so I'm going to rinse that out and get new water before I start doing the cheekbones and the brow. Water's dirty. Rinse it out. Water. Otherwise, you'll have stuff staining all over the place. Does anyone need more time on the eye and the nose before I go on? Okay, thank you. Just give me a thumbs up when you're done. Now, the next thing I'm going to do on here will be a little tricky in the sense that you can't really see what I'm doing because I'm just going to put clear water on. But let me explain what it is, and then you'll have to try to do this. When I put the water on, I don't want it touching where the color change is right there. I want to leave a little space between where I'm putting the water down and where the dark area is. So what happens is when I put paint on there, the paint won't go on that little edge right there where I didn't put any water. This paint will only flow where there's water. So I'll do just a little bit to kind of show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to come right in here, and I'm just taking clear water, putting it right along the edge here, but not touching the edge. Coming over the eye here, coming along here, along the top of the brow, but not touching the brow, and filling in the center here with just clear water, so that when I take some orange right here, I put it on here, it's not going to go right to the edge. I want that little bit of yellow to show through, and I don't want it bleeding into it. Just like that, I got that little bit of yellow border going all the way around it, and I want that to stay there. While that's still wet a little bit, I'll come in right here at the bottom of that and put a little red right here along the bottom, along that left edge. When I say bottom, it's actually going to be the top of the brow. I just want that to softly blend in to the orange that I just put on there. Let's mix that together. Leave it like that. Not going to put any I don't think, well, maybe put just a little tiny bit of brown in this bottom corner, but that'd be about it right here. Just, and I mean very little. The next area we're going to cover is a rather large area, and it's kind of important that you go fast because whenever we got to do a large area, we're trying to stay ahead of the water drying on us. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come down along this side and then down across above the teeth and back up right all this area right in here. But we don't want it to touch the edge just like we just did. We want to just have clear water. Be careful that we're keeping it right in the middle, not touching the edge, close to the edge, but not touching the edge. It's a little trickier when you get down here in the bottom. I'm going pretty fast when I do this because I've got a big area to cover. Kind of smoking right along here. I don't want to go very slow at all. I'll come in with my orange. Kind of right along the edge here. Orange is a little too intense, so I'm going to bring a little out of it. Right there, it bled up to the eye. I can fix that later. Right now, I'm just going to worry about getting it on my paper. Do it while it's still wet. I'll leave just a little bit of yellow right in here. Make this more narrow right here. There's a couple of spots where the orange went into the yellow and I didn't want it to be there, but I'm going to let it dry a little bit first, then I'll go lift that off with clear water. But for right now, it's fine. Just like we did before, come in with a little bit of red now on the edges. Don't want it to be too dark of a red. I'll go along the outer edge here. Up underneath the eye. Let that blend in. Now I'm going along those little lines that were above the mouth. I want to leave those lines in there. While that's still a little bit wet on the underside part of the jawline, or the cheek bone right here, just going to come in here with just a tiny bit of brown. want to go too crazy with it in there. More red right here. That will dry slightly lighter than what we just put it down. Don't stress it too much. Hold that up so you can kind of see what's going on there. It's important that we don't lose all the yellow. We have a couple little spots that we still need to come back and do. This little area between the eyes right here that's yellow. This yellow little spot at the base of the nose. They're very tiny and they're not going to require very much. Who needs another second before I fill those in? Okay. All right. Part of watercolor is learning how to sort of control where it's going to bleed to, kind of like right in here. That's why I kept everything to the outer edge, knowing that if I got too close to the middle, that yellow would disappear right in here. That's why I kept my colors out here and then just let it bleed towards it so that a little bit of yellow will be left. And part of that's just practicing and learning, okay, if I have this much water on there, it's going to bleed this far. If I have a little less water, it's not going to bleed as far. If I have no water, it's not going to bleed anywhere at all. Paint won't go where there's not water. Okay. If there's water, it's going to go towards it like a magnet. But if there isn't any water, it's just going to be exactly where you put it on the paper with your brush. Okay, this little teeny tiny area between the eyes, I'm going to just take a little bit of water, come right in here, take it right to the very edge of the blue, right underneath the brow here. I don't want it to touch the eye, necessarily come right down on the top of the nose. Get a little bit of orange. So it takes and knocks that yellow back a little bit. Accidentally put it right there, didn't want to do that, so pick it up. Run this right into what I've already painted. I'm bring just a little bit of red along the edge of the eye right here. It's still a little wet, so I'm going to wait just a second before I do much more. I want to make sure I don't have a little yellow glow going on between the center line and the orange right there. Make sure this isn't too wet. Still a little bit wet. Blow on it. Got to do whatever I can to get that to dry a little faster. And I'll come in with just that little bit of red right along here. And that little teeny tiny spot down here at the base of the nose, this is yellow. We're just going to make that slightly more orange so it's not so bright. Just a little bit of red in it. Call it good. It's actually a slight undercut right underneath that nose right there, and I'm going to just come in and just put a little shadow there. Hold that up so you can see where that is, just right underneath it. Then we're going to come back and cover a bunch of ground again. We're going to do that whole jaw area. Okay, let's do it this jaw, unless somebody's not even close to ready. If you're not close to ready, let me know. Let's go ahead and do this jaw then. Same way we've done the others. Get a little wet, water on there, staying away from the... Well, in this case, we can go right to the very edge because it's a lighter background behind it. So we don't have to worry about leaving any reflected light. So we can just take the water right to our pencil line. Go around the teeth, fill that all in. Alright, get my orange. When I get down to the chin, right down in here, I want to leave a little bit of yellow right down in here, so I'm not going to fill that all in. I know we went kind of quick, but you kind of have to on this. Then we'll get our red, just building it up, just so we have layers of color. Take that red to the outer edge for now because I want to establish that as a good distinct edge against the background. And the last thing will be the brown along that outer edge and the bottom. Take just a little bit of light green, not very much. Put it a little bit in some of the highlights here just to make it a little more dingy. Probably bring a little bit of that right into here too. So the idea is your outer edge you want it to be a little darker, and then when you move into the interior you want it to be a little bit lighter. It's kind of the idea behind the whole thing. Let that dry for a second while you guys get caught up, and then we'll tackle those teeth. For me, that jaw is a little too light, so I'm going to come in with just a little bit more brown here in the bottom, along this bottom edge, and darken this in a little bit. actually think it needs a little more red in here too, actually. Anybody go off the edge of the point of no return yet on it? It happens. Okay, for the teeth, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of layering on the teeth, I don't want to layer on the teeth. I'm going to just come up here in my upper tray here, and I'm going to take a little bit of this brown and put up here. I don't need a whole lot. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my red and mix with it. And then some of my orange up there. Mixing all the colors here. You got kind of a dingy orange color. And then I'm going to come along the edge of my teeth. I'm going along the right edge. While that's still wet, I'm just going to bring a little water out and blend it out to the left. Leave a little edge of yellow when I get all the way over there to the left edge. Come down here and do that same thing. I'll leave that for now and come down and do the same thing on the bottom teeth. And I'll come back and work them a little more here in just a second. When you're done, they should look a little something like that, like orange teeth right at the moment. Now hopefully they're mostly dry. I'm just going to take a little bit of that brown that I have mixed up here, a little bit of brown, and I'm going to come right there between those teeth. And I'm going to take a little clear water and just fade it over to the left. That's just to brown them down just a little bit more than what they were. It's important to remember to go back and get that clear water before you do it, or you're just going to smear brown all over the place. Do the same thing on the bottom. We gotta let those dry a little bit. We're gonna put a little cast shadow from the top teeth onto the bottom teeth to separate them. But while it's wet, we can't do that. So we're gonna move up here to the top of the skull, and we're gonna do something a little bit different. So that piece of paper I told everybody to have. This one here, the one that's a piece of photocopy paper, printer paper. I want you to wrinkle it up. I want you to get it as wrinkled as you can get it. I want just tons and tons of wrinkles in it. I'm wadding it way up. In fact, I might undo it and wrinkle it again a time or two. So I want it to have lots and lots of wrinkles. It's important that we do this beforehand so we don't have to mess with it later. We're going to put a texture on this skull. And to some degree it will work, and to some degree we're going to go, oh, that could probably work better, but for the most part it's going to work. Okay, so I got it all wadded up. I've got a good wrinkly surface right there. I'm going to set it aside for just a moment. Make sure everybody's got that ready. You're going to see what we're going to do here. So I'm going to take my brown up here. Add a little more brown, and then I'm going to take a bunch of orange. I'm going to put a bunch of orange in there. So I got kind of a dingy orangish brown. Okay, and here's the nervous part to see how well it's going to work. So I've got a dingy orangish brown up here. I'm going to come back over here where I've painted before. Bring it along the edge here. On top of that brow, I'm putting it on pretty thick. I'm going to come right out into my lighter area with it. Uh-oh, what happened here? This is not the time for this to go down. Okay, it's back. Made me nervous. Okay, while that's wet, I'm going to put a little bit of water in that center part. While this is wet, then I'm going to take this and I'm going to go over it and I'm going to press it down and then pick it up. Press it down and pick it up. You got to be a little careful that you don't get too much outside of the area that you're trying to create this texture. It's going to give it a really weathered, gnarly, nasty look. And it's pretty dang cool, actually. So if you look at that now, it has a totally different texture than what it had before. Just take a little section at a time here. We'll come in here and do this little bit of brow, a little bit of the cheekbone, a little bit of the jaw. And we'll give it kind of a neat texture. I got a little bit over here on my blue side. It was just a little bit. I'm just going to put a little water on there. Take my paper towel, soak it up a little bit. And later when I paint back over that, with my blues that I'm going to do on that side. That stuff will disappear, won't even notice it. So any places that I went outside, I'm just kind of touching it up a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much about this over here because it's going to be a dark purple blue, and it won't really show up that much. So hopefully, the idea is it's got to be a dark enough value that when you put it on there and you lift it off, the areas that lift off will be lighter than the dark value, and that's how you get that contrast on there. If your values are very close to the same, there won't be any difference. It won't age it, won't make it look like anything. So I'm going to do the same thing right here on this brow. Put a little water right there. That good orangish brown along this edge. Let it bleed into it a little bit. Now this one I'm going to be a little more careful with because I'm working in a smaller area. Let it dry slightly. Now this has got junk all over it, so I'm going to turn it to a cleaner spot. A little spot. So I'm making this smaller because I'm working on a smaller area right here. It's good and wrinkled. I'm going to press that down. I'm just going to hold it for a second. Let it get in the paper. And when I lift it up, I have a really cool texture on there. And the thing that's cool about this, if you actually saw this in real life, is if somebody didn't see you do it, they would have no clue how you can make that texture because you can't really paint it with a brush. Is anybody else having trouble with the original video? Are you having trouble with it? Take it down and talk to Bailey if you want. See what's going on. Now, it's going to vary on yours how it's going to look when we do this. Some will look really good. Some of you will got your brown too dark on it, and it'll be like blackish brown spots. It's just something you kind of learn as you go. That's why this is our experiment one. That's why there's no grade on this. We're learning the technique. As you do it and you go, oh, that's not quite what I wanted, you adjust for the next time. So down here on the cheek area, I don't want it to get down here in my lightest area, so I'm going to bring a little bit of water here to kind of make that where it stops. And I'll bring it up this way, and then I'll get my dark brown, brownish orange. I'm coming around that outer edge, coming underneath the eye. Probably bring it up here a little bit, and then down along this edge. That I want some of this texture in here, but I don't want it in my lightest area. So intentionally put a little water right here in the center to keep it soft there. Now, I'll come in here, I'll do the same thing, I'll hold it down again. Lift it up. Forgot right down here on the teeth. I actually want that on the teeth a little bit. And that's not the teeth, it's the root area where it goes into the teeth. This area right here. So I'm going to come along here.
I don't understand.
Stupid Siri. don't want it on my teeth necessarily, but on that root area above it, I do want some of this. I have no idea how yours is turning out because I'm trying to deal with wet paint right now and I can't really walk around just yet. But hopefully you're getting a little different texture than what was on there. Hold this up close. In real life, back here looking at it, it actually looks wicked cool. How it looks on the screen's not quite the same as it looks in real life. Now I'm going to take my paper, I'm going to unwrinkle it because I got a lot of paint on one side, and then I'm going to try to re-wrinkle it so I have an area that's kind of clean, like that. If you just need to get more paper, get more paper. I just don't want to have a really dirty area as I come in here to do this jaw right here. And I also need to do this little section right here, which I think that's what I'm going to do next right now. Just really quickly go over this area. I'm not going to take it right into my lightest spot. Let's go around it. Maybe a little bit in there, but mostly around it. Just press that straight down. Hold, lift. Now that's got the same texture. And the neat thing about it is you can't totally control how it's going to look. It's going to have a real abstract look to it, but it gives it an aged look too. This can also be used for like backgrounds. If I wanted to paint like a jungle type background and I use greens and yellows and dark greens and I lift the dark green off, it will look a lot like leaves and foliage back there. I would just have bigger wrinkles. I wouldn't wrinkle my paper quite as tight as what I've got it right now. I've got it really tight now so I can get these little teeny intricate shapes going all through my skull. Finish the jaw out here. Kind of do that all in one big fell swoop here. Come down the jaw. I have quite a bit of paint on my paper to do this one. Leaving just a little bit of yellow down here at the bottom as a highlight. I'll try to get this as long as I can so I can cover the whole thing. Hold. When you're holding it, what you're doing is you're letting that watercolor soak into the paper a little bit. And then you can come down here and adjust it. So what you're going to wind up doing on Wednesday when I'm not here is you will paint this side the same way you did this side, but instead of using red and orange and the yellow that's already on there and brown, you'll use your blues and purples to create this side for your dark to lights. And then you'll use that darker purple blue at the end, just like we're doing now, to texture this side. Hopefully that makes sense to all of you. I may, if I have time, this afternoon actually paint that up and have a video posted for you for Wednesday, but we'll just see how it goes. I'm just kind of giving you an idea of what needs to be done in case I can't get that video done. Okay, these teeth right here, we're going to just do them a little bit. I don't want to texture them too much. Just going to go over them a little bit. I'm not going to even put it in the yellow. I'm just going to go on the, I've watered down my orangish brown just a little bit because I don't want this to be too prominent on them. It's okay if it goes a little bit into that yellow. I got it wet, got it ready. Just one time, and then up. That makes for some really nasty looking teeth on there. I'm gonna bring this around real quick so you can kind of see what it looks like on mine as opposed to up on the screen. It looks pretty cool at first. So here's the difference between the screen. Does not quite look the same. And I know it's scary. Well, no, you can't paint it, you can only create it. Now, on the blue side, like I said, I'll try to create a video for you on that, and then you can kind of go at your own pace on Wednesday, make it a little bit easier for you. I think we'll go ahead and clean up, we'll be a little early, hopefully this time the superintendent doesn't walk in while we're all playing on our phones. Although I really didn't care last week, because you guys did such a great job. If you're still trying to catch up, use this extra 5 minutes for a little catch-up time. Just give me 1 second to stop this recording.